The regular season is heating up, new stars are emerging, and that means more opportunities to win up to 25 times your cash on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection on a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's that easy. Let it fly to turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Watch your favorite players and get paid doing it this basketball season. See your entries make progress during the game or make new entries for the second half and the fourth quarter. 3-pointers, assists, rebounds, and everything in between are yours for the taking. Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
So our podcast is called Right and Wrong.
Are these your notes?
These
Are these your notes about what we're going to say?
Anything.
Nailed it.
Is the short answer.
So how many novels did you not finish?
Oh my God,
prior-
so many.
Perfect. What's she talking about? This is nonsense.
Ooh, a spicy question. I love it.
This is it, guys. The big secret to getting published is you have to write a good book. You heard it here first. Hello, and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. Today, I am joined by 2 guests. First of all is Peters, Fraser and Dunlop's own Lucy Irvine and Dystopian YA writer Melissa Welliver. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Melissa's already been on, so I would like to dive in with you, Lucy. Agent, as of... Am I right in thinking that you were officially, on paper, a fully fledged agent in 2021?
Yeah. So I think it was like July or something like that, 2021. Yeah. But I've been at PFD since 2017, so it's been a journey.
It seems like an incredible trajectory that you've had, because you graduated and then did you go straight into an internship at Agora, which is PFD's publishing arm?
I did, yeah. I think with publishing and getting jobs, it's just all about luck and timing. So I just really luckily managed to get into this internship and then kind of dug my claws into PFD and refused to leave until a job happened to come up as an assistant. And then I think, once you've got an assistant job, it does just become a lot easier. I think it's just like getting that foot through the door, which is so hard.
Were you, when you say assistant, was it like assistant to an agent, or was like
yeah. So it was an assistant to Caroline Michelle, who is the CEO here at PFD. So to be honest, it was more of a PA role than it was a standard agent's assistant role. But it's still, it was an amazing job and taught me so much about the industry. So I think it did sort of put me in good stead then when a role as an associate agent came up, which I then applied to, and that's how I ended up working in children's fiction.
Yeah, well, I mean, you must have got amazing experience with working with the CEO. So you became an agent in 2021, but you started building your list before that. How does it work that you start building a list before you're an agent? So
basically, you just keep doing all of your assistant responsibilities, and then also start taking on clients. And yeah, I think it was, I want to say like August 2019 when I took on my first client, and Melissa was the third client that I ever took on. So we've been together from the beginning. And it's just starting to send books out, starting to meet editors, and kind of I guess make a name for yourself. And then lockdown happens 6 months in, so I've barely met any of my authors, and I've done a lot more deals sort of since the pandemic started, like via Zoom than beforehand. So
that's that's been the same for quite a lot of agents, though. Obviously you've spoken to them, but in terms of meeting them in person, whilst you were an agent, before you were an agent, whilst you were an assistant and you started building your list, do you take submissions at that point, or how are you finding your initial clients?
Yeah. So I sort of opened my inbox to submissions, and really from immediately did start getting submissions. So I'm always looking in our submissions inbox for new clients. And then aside from that, I do a lot of one-to-one sessions with Write Mentor, who Melissa also works for, and various other children's writing groups. There are so many great groups available in the sort of children's side of the industry. I think that's just a really great way to meet people, because you get to kind of talk to them one-on-one before their books are ready for submission, and you can kind of get that input from early on.
Yeah. Of course, that makes sense. So, Melissa, how did you end up finding Lucy?
I thought you were going to say, how did I end up with Lucy then? And I was like, I chose Lucy.
Wow, okay, I see how it is.
That's really where that was going. So I've also been at PFD since 2017 as an author. Yeah, that's right, 2017. And I joined with a lovely agent called Tessa David, who was working in the children's department at the time. She's not there anymore. And we went out on submission. I've talked about how I got to that position in the previous podcast, but we went out on submission. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, little plug. And we went out on submission, and I didn't sell my first book. And I went through to do the second book, which was something I'd actually written a while ago, which ended up being The Undying Tower. And me and Tessa basically realized she'd been sort of agenting for a little while by then. I think she'd also been promoted to full agent. And she started to move towards maybe some historical, maybe some more middle grade. And I was writing YA. So we both agreed that it might be better if I found somebody else, because it was quite a dark YA, if anyone's read it. It's quite dark. So she actually suggested Lucy and said, I think it was before even Lucy had her webpage up, because I remember when she said, oh, here's like somebody I think would be a really good fit, it's Lucy Irvine. I went and looked and couldn't find her. And I was like,
you Googled me and you were like, this person doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I did not exist really on Google, so fair enough. But what was really funny was when I did type in her name into something else, it came up with a load of my files on my computer, and Lucy had actually sort of been like a second reader for the first book that went out on submission in like 2017, 2018.
Yeah, that when I was an intern. Yeah. I remember that so clearly as well. It was one of the first kind of full manuscripts I ever read as an intern. Yeah.
That's so crazy. Yeah. So then here we are. So yeah, we basically got introduced to each other. And then because I was already at the agency, there wasn't like a thing of signing or anything like that. I really want to stay at PFD. And and Lucy really liked my stuff, and we kind of worked together before, and it felt like fate. So yeah, that's how it went.
You sounds like you'd worked together from afar without knowing.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really weird. It's fate. It's just like a YA novel.
Yes, exactly. But it's a really nice story, and it's nice that you guys finally were united, and I guess your arc was complete. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like the best sort of like romance arc of all time. Romance being more like about writing, which is much more exciting than romance anyway.
Yeah. So here's my question: you it must have been in 2019 when Lucy wasn't technically an agent on paper,
right?
But from your end, Melissa, was there any distinction at all in terms of like difference in once Lucy was officially an agent versus when she was building a list?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't think so. I did notice, so I've been working for Write Mentor now since 2021. And from about just before that time, and from that time, more people were messaging me on Twitter or sending me emails via my contact form, which is fine because I leave those both open. And I always encourage people to contact me because I don't want to do any work and I'm always procrastinating. And lots of people are asking me about Lucy and saying like, oh, I've got one-to-one with Lucy Irvine and I know she's your agent. And I just wanted to see, like, is she a good agent? Like, do you like being with her? What's she like? Yeah.
Is she good at her job?
Do you like her? And I started to notice that a lot more. And I thought, oh, okay. And then I saw the announcement, because, you know, they put it in the usual places, don't they? I'm sure it was on the website, or maybe it was even in the bookseller or something. But I saw the announcement and I was like, oh, not even surprised. Like, and I just started to, it's so difficult, isn't it, Lucy? Because obviously you get lots of these deals that you were like securing, just like authors aren't allowed to talk about them. Right. You're not allowed to talk about them. Yeah. So it all seemed like it was happening at once, but really, obviously you were sowing all these seeds behind the scenes that I didn't see either, because obviously that's with your other clients. So it's not like Lucy just comes to me and goes, right, let's talk about all the other clients. Like, I have no idea what's going on there. So it didn't feel different from my perspective, because we'd been talking for a long time at that point. Like, so if I signed with Lucy in 2019 and we sold the book end of 2020, so it was quite a long time I'd been with her anyway when sort of this all started to kick off, and it was quite interesting. And I saw Lucy was like judging competitions, and I was like, oh, my gosh, look at my famous agent, look at her go. And it was great. Like, it's
almost
amazing.
Like I'm your child here who's like flying the nest, and you're like, oh, I've been here since the start.
I know. Whereas really, it's definitely the other way around. I am the child, absolutely 100%, and Lucy has launched me off like very well. But yes, it's ever since it's been really nice relationship, and it's been really good. So
okay, and for you, Lucy,
mm-hmm.
I mean, from going from kind of working 2 jobs within the agency, was it a big difference when in 2021 it was official stamped you're an agent now and that is what you are?
See, it probably would be more, except I'm currently covering a colleague's maternity, so I technically still have 2 jobs. So I'm very much hoping that when she comes back, I will finally just be able to sort of do my own thing, have my own job. But no, it's I think PFD, they're such a supportive company, and they're really, really encouraging of young agents who want to kind of go out and start establishing themselves and building their own lists. So it has been really nice to kind of like move through that space and sort of just feel like you have a bit more autonomy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that your whole career can be with this one company, and it's quite rare nowadays in a lot of sort of corporate environments where a company will literally nurture you from an intern all the way through to, wherever your career is going.
Yeah.
So it's nice that they have that support.
Yeah, and I think, it's not just me. They've kind of done that. They've launched so many agents' career here, and I think they are really good. I think like half of us started on the internship program and then kind of went on to become assistants and agents.
Amazing.
So,
there's still presumably there's probably fresh interns now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Path. Yeah, that's great. Work-wise, between you two, no, I've not only have I never had 2 guests before on the show, I've never had an author and their client, and their agent.
Yeah.
So work-wise, how does the relationship work? Are you guys in touch daily, weekly, monthly? Is this the first time you've spoken since Undying Tale came out?
I feel like there definitely was a time when we were in touch, if not daily, then like multiple times a week. For sure. But I think that definitely really depends on what is going on in terms of like around that time when we were first going on submission. We were definitely in touch a lot more. And I think, now it really is depending on what is going on for Melissa in terms of what projects you're working on at the moment, what other conversations we're having behind the scenes, which maybe we can't talk about live yet. And just, like what's going on for Melissa. Basically, I'm sort of on call to help as and when I need to be.
Yeah, and I remember when we stopped, like not stopped speaking every day, but we were in super close contact. No, stop speaking at all. It's actually going to turn this whole interview on its head and everything's going to come out. But when we were talking every day, it was so nice. When I was on submission, and obviously being a bit needy and clingy, I'm sure no other authors ever said that before. And, you need that extra support and chatting about the rejections coming in, and maybe it might be going through to this commissioning team or whatever it may be, and getting updates. And then obviously the book comes out, and just feel like, oh my gosh, we've not spoken. I think I sent Lucy an email at one point, and I was like, oh, we've not spoken in like 2 weeks.
I loved it when you started watching Black Sails, and then you just started emailing me updates with like where you were in the TV show, and I was like, yes, I'm glad we've like elevated just to like chatting.
Yes, it was so nice because it was such a difference from my usual incredibly nervous emails. So it was really nice to be talking about something else and kind of take my mind off that, but still be in touch with you. So yeah, it was really crazy when we stopped talking so much, and it felt like, oh no, we're not talking as much, but obviously like still BFFs, so still here. Okay. Really excited for what's coming next. So it's all good. I probably, Lucy's right, it depends. So lots of things seem to switch over to your publisher.
Yeah.
So I end up talking to my publisher, and then every now and then saying to Lucy, like, oh, do you want me to copy you in on this? And she's like, oh, yeah, if you have like X or Y, or like if there's a particular deadline or you're sending back notes, like, oh, I wouldn't mind being copied in just to sort of know roughly where you're up to. So yeah, I think a lot of stuff gets switched over to the publisher. And obviously, if you have a really good relationship with your publisher, it's lovely as well, and you can chat to them
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the difference. But mostly I think I spoke to Lucy recently before this anyway. So I should never leave her alone.
Like, oh, Melissa again.
Do you ever have to nag Melissa for like deadlines and things?
No, not at all. Honestly, like the opposite. Do you remember when we were, when we first started working together? I can remember at one point being like, here's your draft. I want you to go away for a month. And I don't want to see it again for another month. When you think it's ready to come back, I want you to like sit on it and give it another read, because you're so quick. It's amazing.
Yes, I am. Yeah, no, it's definitely the opposite. I get way too keen when I get feedback and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have to dive straight into the story right now. And then, yeah, I send it. But I have to force myself to sit on things before sending them back, because I just will stay up all night and be really excited about the story. Especially what's really nice about mine and Lucy's relationship is quite editorial. So I feel like sometimes I suggest something. Lucy says, oh, I'm not sure this scene works. What about this? And then we come to a third option together, which is better than either option. So I get really excited and fired up when I get the notes. And then usually, I'm way too quick. Yeah, I know it's probably not what sounds a bit nerdy, really. But yeah, no, I'm always way too quick. So I don't think you have to.
I feel like we're all nerds here. Like, this is a safe space.
That's why we're here, to talk about books and nerdy stuff and pirates and black sailors.
That's true, yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, how often do you guys often come together and work on edits and drafts?
I think particularly for when it comes to the Undying trilogy now, because obviously we have Agora. Sam is Melissa's brilliant publisher. So I feel like it's more of a collaborative experience now with Sam being involved and Peyton, who was Melissa's old editor, who sadly no longer works at Agora. I feel like the four of us had a brainstorm last time, wasn't it? Rather than it just being me and you.
Yes, which was really nice. And so that's a little bit different. So, and when we go through before submission, I mean, it depends. Like there was one project I sent out on submission that I only did, I think, 2 or 3 edits with Lucy, and we turned it around quite quickly. Whereas the Undying Tower, oh gosh, there was so much to pull apart and change. And we did quite a few passes on that.
It's quite complicated in terms of number of characters and plot. And,
that's so true. Yeah. Whereas the other one that I did for Lucy, I think was like really 2 main characters, and it was very, very different type of book.
And also,
so maybe that's why
it was so strong from the start, that other project. Like, I'm not saying that the Undying Tower wasn't, of course.
The Undying Tower is amazing now.
you could really see like how you had grown as a writer in between that project and this other project.
Oh, that's so nice. Because I suppose as a writer, I always think this, like, I flipping well hope so. I hope like I improve as I go. I don't want my first book to be the best. It's all downhill from here, guys. Everything's useless. So I would hope it seems like a big improvement. So yeah, maybe that was why we didn't need to do as many passes, but we do as many as we need to.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, and I think naturally it's very hard for unless your first book is pure concept and it's the greatest concept, it's very hard for your sequential books to be worse, because I just feel like you get better as a writer the more you write.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So even if the concept is equal, the book will be better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Here's a question I always ask agents, because it's interesting to see how much it varies. Lucy, when you receive a submission, and you are open to submissions currently.
I am, yeah.
You are. Okay, as of February 2022, open to submissions. And submissions at PFD are pretty standard, 3 chapters, synopsis, cover letter.
Yeah.
Different for non-fic, but you don't rep non-fiction?
Not generally. I have like a couple of very niche like passion projects.
Okay.
But yeah, generally it's all fiction.
Okay. So when you receive a submission, what order do you look at each of the parts, and where do you attribute the most weight?
Oh, that's interesting. So obviously start with the cover letter, as I imagine most people do.
Not everyone.
Really?
Well,
that's intriguing.
A couple I've spoken to is a gloss over the cover letter straight into the text.
No, it is like the cover letter for me, which will kind of dictate whether I like stop and read it immediately, or whether I file it into my submissions folder to then come back when I like have time to read submissions. Whereas sometimes something will come in and I will just start reading immediately because something's grabbed me from the cover letter. And yet I don't tend to read synopses before I request the full manuscript. I imagine that might be where we see a bit of variance, because especially if, say, I love a YA mystery, I rep a good few mysteries. And I think so much of that hinges on the plot twists working that I don't want to know what those plot twists are before I've read the book. So quite frequently I will read the sample chapter and then just go straight to requesting the full without knowing what's coming. Yeah.
Wow. That's so interesting. No, I've not had anyone say that before.
No, I haven't either.
Although, there are agencies and agents that just don't ask for synopsis at all.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But I think there are cases where I have read the synopsis more when I've been sort of on the fence as to whether the concept is working. So you want to have a little read to see like how it's followed through. But I think if I am just really gripped by the sample, then I'd rather just stay gripped without kind of knowing what's coming.
Yeah, wow. It's quite a commitment if then the twist sucks.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
And they woke up. Oh,
and then it was all a dream.
I was thinking the other day about when the classic trope of "and they woke up" is that you can never end a story like that. I was thinking, is the modern interpretation of that, and then they took the VR headset off?
Oh my gosh, yes, like super Black Mirror.
I don't know why, I was just thinking
circa 2006.
Super lame trope that you could do, and then they took the headset off. Oh, cool. So it's cover letter. And then the cover letter sort of dictates whether it's I must read this now or file away for later. But you always try to read the text no matter what. Yes, yeah. Although I will admit I'm quite behind at the moment. But the aim obviously is always to get back to everybody. I think on our website it says that we aim to respond between 6 to 8 weeks. I think 8 weeks, but I would say, like, being honest, it's probably more like 3 months that I end up getting back to people. But that is just because I'm probably not as good at managing my time as I should be. But yeah, I think we across the board at PFD, we do try to respond to everybody. And did you, I know that it was a bit different with you two because Melissa was already with the agency and it was more of a change than anything. But did you ever read Melissa's submission? As in, wait, which submission? As in when she submitted to the agency originally. Oh, so I think that probably, did you submit directly to Tess? I have a weird story about this. Oh, okay. I don't know this story. I'm never sure if it's true. This is the story that's okay. So, time to drop a name, but I have a very lovely friend called Jeanette Winston who you may have heard of. And she is with PFD and is very happy with PFD. And I was asking her for advice. So she was a teacher on a course I did, and I was asking her for advice on who to apply to. And she said, oh, well, why don't I read your book, like the beginning, the sort of opening chapters, and then we can have a think where to place it. And she told me that this is probably not true now, she went into PFD to print off at least the first bit of the few chapters I'd done of my first project. And it was a really long printer queue. So she was like, oh, I'll just come back later. Because I don't know, apparently Jeanette walks into offices and uses their printer. But that's, you know what, she can do that. She can do that. She's Jeanette, of course she can. Yeah, I feel like who were these people in front of her in the queue that didn't just immediately like leap out of the way? I know. So I know she definitely said she wanted to print it because she's like, I don't read on a screen. And the story is that Tess went to the printer to get something and saw the pages and started reading it and thought, well, this is quite good. You know what? If that is true, then that is so a lovely story. Yeah. I know. I'm always like, this surely can't be true. But this is the story I was told, because the next thing was she actually sent me an email and said, actually, you know what? The pages have been passed around PFD. Aww. And maybe we'll just go with PFD. And I was like, what do you mean my pages have been passed around? I didn't check them for spelling errors. That was my immediate panic thought. But so apparently that's sort of how it happened. Although I was already querying. So I'd had like, you know, the usual 30, 40 rejections, and I'd already queried actually The Undying Tower in a very, very early stage, like the year before. And I think I'd also put, so that one was called The Curiosity Locker. Yes. That maybe one day maybe will come back. We'll see. But it does need a big rewrite. I can see that now. And I did put it on. Remember, Twitter pictures used to be not as overloaded as they are now. And I got a like from a couple of other agencies. So I had sent the package to them. So I do have a letter and stuff for it, but I didn't actually send one to PFD because it was very strange. A strange way in. So I don't think I actually sent one. That's the trick. You just need to print out your thing and somehow sneak it into like on top of a printer and in one of the agencies somewhere. Just blows up.
I mean, extreme. I will say that it is very in character for all of us. Like if we saw like random pages by a printer, we would probably all just like immediately start reading.
I must read this.
Yeah, so maybe it's true. Let's say it's true. Yeah. It's a nice story.
It's a great story. It sounds like something from a rom-com, like a movie you'd watch.
It does.
Yeah, that sounds like one of those like movie representations of what publishing is like.
Yeah. And then the next week I'd have like a 7-figure deal and I'd be annoyed that I have to go to the filming of the TV series. And yeah, absolutely. Which is exactly what it's like, everyone.
Yeah, 100%. Do you remember the submission, Melissa? Was it a very different iteration of what eventually became the book?
The one that I submitted to Tess originally. That was really heavy editorial. I think we edited it for a year, but it was my first ever book. I was in my mid-20s and if I'm being totally honest, didn't really know what I was doing. I think the idea was really solid. It was a time slip novel and it had a really great pitch, but I think it was, I think everyone says this, it was more of like a practice book. Like I learned so much from that book and I ended up lifting whole characters and stuff for other books. So it definitely needs a really big rewrite. But it was a really fun idea about portals opening to different parts in time and that you can go in for a certain amount of time and then you get kicked out again. It was a really fun idea, but I wrote it as YA and I think it's more of a middle grade story.
And huge in middle grade.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was basically the feedback I got when I was on submission. Some people were kind enough to give me some feedback and this is more of a middle grade story. So it did change drastically from when I first submitted it. I think it was 50,000 words and it went up to 120 at one point and went back down to 90. It was insane. Yeah, it was absolutely insane. Lucy's like, thank goodness I wasn't there. It was pretty crazy at points.
No, yeah, the version that I read as an intern definitely wasn't 120,000.
No. Oh my gosh, it was absolutely balmy, to be honest. But it was the second one I'd written, but the first one that I'd actually tried to like hit plot points and stuff. So it definitely was like a practice novel because the first one I wrote was a very early version of The Undying Tower. So yeah, I definitely I think it was a completely different book by the time it went out on submission.
Yeah. And it wasn't even The Undying Tower. It was a different thing, right?
No, it was a completely different thing that ended up not selling, which I think is a more common story than, I don't know if people have said when they've come on here, but I think that's a really common story people don't talk about. It's like, oh, I've got an agent. This is an automatic golden ticket to my 6-figure deal. Like, I can't wait. No. That's just, not always how it works out for just luck a lot of the time, especially if you've managed to get an agent. So you've obviously got something, you've got some talent. And it's really, really difficult. But yeah, that one didn't sell.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you'll agree with me on this one, Lucy, but I know a few authors who, similar situation to Melissa, where they've been signed by an agent for the first book, which then doesn't sell, but quite a lot of the time, the second book is the one where they work together with the agent, and that's the one that does sell. Is it more important when you're looking to sign someone that the kind of style and the writing and the voice is kind of the paramount thing?
Well, yeah, I suppose when you're looking to sign someone as a client, I think the important thing to remember is that you're not signing just that one book. You are signing the author, like as a person, with the full intention that you're going to be working together, sort of for your career. So I think it is always really important to sort of ask what other ideas writers have, what else they're working on, sort of where they see themselves sitting. You know, like, are you a middle grade writer who really wants to stick in middle grade, or are you someone that also has ambitions to write across YA? Or, you know, sometimes I've got some picture book authors who also write chapter books. So I think establishing all of that is really important, because especially, to be honest, in the post-pandemic world, it is really tricky out there. So there's never a guarantee that your agent is going to be able to sell your book first time. So yeah, I think having that fuller picture is really important.
Yeah. How do you feel about, is it hard to pitch an author that potentially writes across different genres and age groups? Let's say if Melissa decided to write picture books, because that's sort of off-brand for her, would it be harder to pitch that?
Well, I think, picture books, I think, is a completely different craft, really, to sort of YA and middle grade. So I think that would be very impressive, Melissa, if you
I have something to propose to you, Lucy, but I don't think it's going well.
But yeah, no, I think in that case, it would be firstly like whether his current publisher actually did picture books or not. And then, it would be talking about whether that was something that we sort of wanted to try and take widely elsewhere, and, those conversations that would have to happen with a current publisher. It's like, tricky to navigate, but it's definitely something that lots of authors do, writing across multiple age groups. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And open to submissions, you go from MG and YA. You don't do adult and you don't do younger. Is that right?
Well, no. So I technically, I do picture books through to YA, and then technically I'm open to submissions for science fiction and fantasy in the adult space. Although I will be honest, I rarely take on people in the adult space, just because I'm not as familiar with adult editors. So I don't feel like I have as much of a sort of grasp of how the market works. So I think it would only be if I really, really fell in love with something that I would take on an adult book.
Okay. We're at the start of 2022 now. Is there anything particular, maybe like a character, a voice, or a genre that you are looking to add to your list this year?
Ooh, that is a very good question, which I probably should have thought about before I came on this podcast. To be honest, I am really open to anything, and actually, weirdly, I would say I'm generally more of a YA person. But looking at the projects I've got coming up for Bologna, they are mostly middle grade. So I am particularly keen to find another YA project at the moment. I think my heart is always very much in the sort of genre fiction, fantasy sphere. So I'm always looking for kind of a different spin on more traditional fantasy tropes. But then, just love a good mystery, love a good contemporary novel, love historical fiction. So I'm quite easy, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah. So quite broad, but
something
a bit weird, a bit fantastical.
Exactly.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Well, that's helpful for everyone who's thinking about submitting to you, hopefully. And if you are thinking about submitting, make sure you go to the PFD website, check all of the submission guidelines, make sure you're ticking all the boxes. You don't want to fall at the first hurdle. Before we get on to the last question, Melissa, you're hard at work with the latest drafts of #The Undying City, #Watch the Space. What advice have you been given that you found most useful for your writing?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Thanks so much.
I know. It's like you're a professional. I think probably especially when the book comes out. So the thing is, you spend so many years writing a book and you're so desperate to sell it so loads of people read it. And then it comes out and your worst nightmare is somebody reading it. So I can't think of anything worse than anybody reading this book. I feel so embarrassed. So it's bizarre. It's like you've opened your soul and you're like, yeah, my soul's in this book. And then you're handing your soul out to people. Yeah. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't want anyone to tell me anything. So the best piece of advice I would say is trying, and it's very difficult, especially when you're writing a sequel like I am, to shut the windows of your house. So if you're in your house writing and there's people outside the windows, they're giving you feedback on what you've already written, the best advice is just like shut the curtains. Like just don't, it's not a good idea. Don't go on Goodreads. Like don't go on, although I've actually been super lucky on Goodreads. Like clearly like all my fans are really, really nice. I don't know how this has happened. Obviously I just attract very nice fans. It's like amazing so far, but I try not to look too much, or, don't look at that 2-star that somebody left after reading it on Kindle and didn't even tell you why it was a 2-star. Just don't look at it. Just don't do it. That's the best advice, because you just write what you want to write and how you see it coming out, and then don't worry about it. Once you hand it over to the publisher, it's kind of out of your hands and becomes everyone else's thing as well. And that actually can be a really nice thing. It doesn't have to just be as scary as it is the first time a book comes out. You're like, oh my gosh, there's nothing more scary than everyone reading my thing. But actually it's quite nice. You're handing it out to people, and people are now asking me questions about The Undying Tower, and it's nice doing interviews once it's out, because people want to join into that world and get in it with you. So yeah, definitely shut the metaphorical curtains on anybody trying to give, even if they're trying to give really nice, well-meaning advice. It can sometimes be, oh, I really think you should make these characters get together. It's like, oh, okay.
Now I have to kill them. Damn it.
Whoopsies.
Why have you done this? So shut out the noise. That's great advice.
Yeah. That's lovely advice. I love that.
Yeah. No matter if you're writing a sequel or the first, book, shut out the noise.
Yeah.
Know where the good critique is coming from. Find your tribe. But remember that you can, the thing about critique, and I always talk about this with my friends who are writers, is that it's all about knowing that even if someone gives you good critique, it's still up to you whether you take that or not. Everything's just opinions. You're the master of the book.
Yeah, it's your story at the end of the day. And it can be really difficult to remember that sometimes.
Yeah.
I always think that with our relationship as well, Melissa, and like with all my authors, is that like all we are doing is imparting advice, and it is always up to you at the end of the day whether or not you take it on board, because it is your world and it's your creation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just hope that the best agent relationship is the one where hopefully you're on the same page about most things anyway. Mm-hmm. So you can definitely not only trust the critique, but it's actually very rare that I would disagree with something Lucy said. As I say, even if I find a third way to do it, that isn't saying your suggestion. So that's what you would hope anyway, is that you're on the same page sort of artistically.
Your visions are aligned, even if occasionally there's the small thing where I said, maybe consider doing this. And this is like, no, actually, that's really important to me. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, we'll find another way to make it work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You're in on it together.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. And the same with editors. Editors know what they're doing. So
they do.
Absolutely.
Have a listen to them. Hopefully they don't force you to do something you don't want to do. But that brings us to the final question, which Melissa has already answered in a somewhat esoteric and amusing way.
I do feel like you should repeat your answer, though, for people who didn't watch it first time round.
Tell us, Melissa, what book did you take to the desert island with you?
Well, as people know who read my stuff, I am a survivalist. Okay, and if I'm on a desert island, I'm not picking up a build a raft for dummies, because A, that's lame, and B, I wouldn't understand any of the engineering. So I took the Argos catalogue so that I could rip it up for firewood kindling. I have like something that I can look at and remember the good times of civilization, and it just reminds me of back home, and I see little people and I can give them little names and stuff and completely go into my own world. It'll be great. I could plot a whole book using the Argos catalogue. So I said the Argos catalogue.
The Argos catalogue.
Yeah.
Which, does it even exist anymore?
No, sadly, it does not. So I'd have to bring a really old one.
Yeah.
That would be so sad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all digital nowadays.
It is, yeah. Maybe I could take an iPad then and then just call someone.
No,
but then
finish with the Argos.
It would die in like a day. And then what would you do?
True, yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah. But Lucy, if you were stranded on a desert island by yourself with a single book, which book would you take with you?
See, this is really funny because we ask our potential interns this in interviews, and I am interviewing interns this week. So just today, I've been asking people this question. So I've been thinking a lot about like how I would answer it, and whether you'd go with like your favorite book, or whether you go with sort of a really long book that you've always wanted to read, and you think, okay, well now I'm stranded on a desert island, like now is the time. But I think if I'm being fully honest with myself, and this is embarrassing, but what I would want if I was stuck on a desert island would just be like a comfort read, and it would just be a book that I know completely inside out. I know what's going to happen. I'm just using it as a coping mechanism. And if I'm being really honest with myself, that would probably be a piece of fan fiction. So what I would take to a desert island would probably just be like a bound copy of my favorite fan fiction.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
What is your favorite fan fiction?
Yeah, I need to know that.
See, that would be telling.
It's like 50 Shades of Grey.
It can't be any worse than mine, which is Coronation Street fan fiction, where two
of
the gay characters were vampire hunters.
That is amazing.
So good.
Why is it always vampires in fan fiction?
Because there aren't enough vampires in fiction, okay? Yeah. We need more books about vampires.
Apparently they're coming back. Did you read that bookseller article? They're coming back this year.
I'm excited. That's right. I'll just start a new Word document now, guys.
Oh, actually, this is a good point. I was thinking on this. If anyone wants to send me a werewolf piece of fiction, because I feel like we've just had a lot of vampires, right? But like, has there been a big YA book that's centered like purely on werewolves?
They're always secondary, aren't they?
I feel like they always come second to the vampires, and like why? I think they need their time to shine.
Yeah, it's creaturist.
Not since Teen Wolf, I guess.
Yeah, Teen Wolf, that was amazing. A book of Teen Wolf. Oh, yes, that. I want to read it.
Well, we're about to get Blade, right? Blade's coming back to the big screen in the MCU. So, vampires ahoy. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Lucy. That's a great answer. And I wonder if any of your interns will listen to this and take what you've said on board.
Yeah, when I do for the rest of the week, when I'm doing this, I'll be like, wow.
Well, I actually like fan fiction and I can't tell you which one. And thanks, Melissa, for coming back on and hanging out with us. And the two of you just kind of talking about how your relationship works and how you met and all of that jazz. It's been great.
Yeah, I loved it. It's been so nice.
It has. Yeah, this has been a lot less scary than I thought it would be.
Yeah, we're not scary.
Yeah, we try to make it as chilled as possible.
Yeah.
And for everyone listening, to keep up with everything that we're doing, you can follow Melissa on socials at Melliver. You can follow Lucy on socials at Lucy Irvine 93. Head over to the Peters Fraser Dunlop website, petersfraserdunlop.com, if you're looking to submit or you want to look up different agents from the agency. And to make sure you don't miss an episode of this podcast, follow us on Twitter at Right and Wrong UK and on Instagram at Right and Wrong Podcast. Thanks again to Lucy and Melissa, and thanks to everybody listening. We will see you on the next one.